So we're all waiting for this big announcement from Dana White on who will be headlining UFC 300. And Israel Adesanya jumps onto his Instagram and starts posting pictures like this, which sent the community into a frenzy thinking that this is actually gonna happen. Dricus du Plessis might be ready to face Israel Adesanya at UFC 300. We're gonna get into that and see how we feel about it. I know I've got some strong thoughts about it just in terms of whether it's fair, but look, it is what it is. So yeah, let's jump over here and just see what he posted on his story, right? A little bit of crap there. So Izzy posts this to his Instagram story saying 300. We have the image there of Leonidas with a bit of a black face, to be honest with you. And the tagline is "The gods must be crazy." I'm not sure whether Israel Adesanya understands that that's a movie about a bunch of African lads who get enamored with a glass bottle and treat it as a god. But again, that doesn't really matter because I think that Israel is putting out a message that he's ready to go for 300 and that it's in the works possibly. He follows that up with this Muhammad Ali, George Foreman, I believe. We write history. Embarrassing, no one's listening to you. But you do have something very similar in common with Muhammad Ali because he was extremely racist as well. But he did it in the right way. He wasn't trying to hide it. It wasn't this like covert operation. He just went into interviews and said,
"No intelligent black man in this audience, no intelligent black woman in this audience want little white boys and little white girls coming to marry their sons and daughters and in return introducing your grandchildren as little half-white, green-eyed, blonde-haired Negroes."
We can't integrate. We ain't gonna never have no peace.
The culture, the nature's different.
I'd rather go and be my own. I have a beautiful daughter, beautiful wife. They look like me. We're all happy and I don't have no trouble.
And it was perfectly acceptable because the lad was black. But if you say that in the inversion, you know what happens. But I actually respect Muhammad Ali for that and for everything else that he did. And Israel comparing himself to Muhammad Ali, we don't need to go into it. We don't need to go into it. And we see Israel here in his next Instagram post, ripping off the top, looking fairly jacked. And we have the indentation here of Muhammad Ali flashing in. "He who is not courageous enough to take risks will accomplish nothing in life." Yeah, I guess he's ready to take a risk. I guess he's ready to bounce into UFC 300 after a juice-filled break, I would imagine. And again, this brings up the question that we spoke about in the aftermath of the Dricus du Plessis and Sean Strickland fight. And that question is the rematch. Would Sean Strickland be ready to fight at UFC 300? I'm certain that he would. Would Dricus du Plessis be ready to fight? If he's going to fight Israel, is he going to fight Sean? Is there going to be a rematch? Absolutely no talk about it. It's very, very strange that there was no talk about it. It almost leads us to believe that there is an actual conspiracy at play here, and they don't want Sean Strickland to have that belt because of his outspoken behavior. How do we actually feel about Israel Adesanya if it does get announced that he's coming in fighting at UFC 300? This is the wild card. That this is the one that we're all talking about. In terms of a fight fan and in terms of where that card is going in direction, it's a good fight. That would be an enjoyable fight. And I watched Chael's video this morning. He gave me a shout out over there. Fair play to you, Chael. And he was saying that in terms of a real beef, this is the realest beef that we have at the moment in the UFC. And I agree with him. Like the Belal Muhammad, Leon Edwards, that's not a beef. And if we're talking about Jamal Hill, he's got a beef with everybody. Are we going to watch him fight Pereira? Look, they're fine. They're okay fights, but they're not what we want. We want the spectacle. We want the backstory. And to be honest with you, if we're being 100% honest and we bypass how I feel about Israel Adesanya getting another title shot, I think that has to be spoken in terms of this story. It's like, dude is rolling back into another title shot? What does that say about the organization? What does that say about every other fighter that's busting? Jared Cannonier, that busting ass coming up, trying to get something done, trying to get their goal accomplished of becoming the champion. And Israel is just getting title shot after title shot. Israel could quite possibly go in here and win this fight and become the new champion. That's well within the realms of possibility in terms of this storyline. What does this mean for the UFC in terms of this sort of a storyline of Israel Adesanya coming back and grabbing the title again? Is it a case of I'm way off the mark when I say that the organization want a champion like Israel Adesanya, someone that wears nail varnish, he wears women's clothes, and he's an ally to the community? Am I way off the mark thinking that this is the type of fighter that the UFC want to promote? Not Dana White now. We're talking about the UFC as a conglomerate, as someone that's owned by ESPN and Disney, and apparently have higher ups that did reprimand and go after Sean Strickland for what he said during that press conference last week. So if we think of the organization as that, is that why we're getting this title fight, or is it because of the legitimate beef? It's very interesting. I've covered a bunch of stories in the last couple of days regarding Layla Anna Lee, John Anik, and even I saw a clip yesterday of Molly McCann, and they're all taking this kind of moral high ground of trolls and haters that are attacking them online. And they're all talking in terms of the UFC is really moving in a direction that we don't like. This seems to be the narrative. This seems to be the memo that got sent out. That's fine. That's fine. It actually exposes you more than you know. Because let's take Molly McCann, for instance. She's running around, she's drinking beer, she's eating food, she's roaring and screaming. It did get promoted and it did get projected a bit in the beginning by the UFC because it just didn't understand that UK people are embarrassed by that. Nothing personal. Always said this, nothing personal against the likes of a Molly McCann or an Ian Gary or a John Anik or any of these guys. Nothing personal, of course. It's just criticism of people that are in the public eye. And that seems to be the point that all these people missed. They missed the fact that they are in the public eye. And when you put yourself in the public eye, you should be able to accept criticism. I put myself in the public eye to a smaller scale completely, and I get a multitude of criticism and some really vile trash. It's absolutely fine. I'm not going to hold up my hands and try to ask people to be reprimanded. And if I was a massive public figure like these people, I wouldn't do it either. So you have that element. So you have the UFC leaning towards this weird narrative bubble of we've got trolls and haters and we have to almost realign what the structure and the image of this company is. And is Israel Adesanya coming back getting the title part of this realignment? Is that the outcome here? So putting all that aside in terms of the fight and how it plays out, it's a cool fight. It's a really cool fight. It's something that I'd be massively interested in to watch. If it was at 300, I'd love it. I almost feel like we're rushing this fight though, because if we jump over and we look at Israel's Instagram, and he's talking Rumble in the Jungle, he's talking Muhammad Ali, and he wants to make it this big thing, and I think that it's there to be made. Of course, the history behind it, like Israel Adesanya disgustingly racially abusing Dricus du Plessis, the current middleweight champion, and getting away with it. He wasn't reprimanded. There was no punitive measures. The UFC and the higher-ups that took offense to what Sean Strickland said were okay with that because it was coming from a perfect direction in terms of demographics, skin color, and identity politics. It was coming from a perfect direction. White guy, colonizer, getting shut down by our black gay champion. Awesome. That is loved by the higher ups in UFC apparently, and ESPN and Disney, all these vile organizations, we know what they're into. So that's fine. So there's definitely a huge story there that has been built up. Dricus du Plessis is the champion. If we were to have this out in Africa, it would be cool. It would be awesome. Can you imagine the build up to it? Can you imagine these two lads going at each other outdoors in Africa? You know, like a press conference like the Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather one, you know, like live on stage, thousands of people around. That'd be awesome. I'm all in for that. If it's at UFC 300 and it's rushed and there's bullshit talks about injuries and this, that and the other, that takes the shine off it a bit, but I'm still interested as a main event, 100%. Who wins that fight? I went on record last week and I said that Sean Strickland, I believe, just about edged that close contentious fight with Dricus du Plessis, and I stick by my guns in terms of that. That doesn't take away anything from Dricus. I think he did amazing, and his style was relentless. The fact that he went 5 rounds, kept pushing, showed great cardio, great versatility. The dude's a beast. The dude is a beast. It's 100% fact. So him versus Israel is a really cool fight to talk about. Israel's after taking a break. He's after getting up. He's after popping out a bit there in terms of size. Did a Conor McGregor on it? Maybe. Allegedly. So that clash between the two of them boys in the middle of the octagon as a headliner at UFC 300. I'm interested. So putting everything aside, putting the build-up aside, putting the accusations of fake injury aside with Dricus du Plessis and the constant racial attacks towards Dricus du Plessis facilitated by the higher-ups that own and love this sort of behavior from a certain demographic in the UFC. Where do you see this fight going? Who do you see winning this fight? And will it come to fruition? Let me know your thoughts down below. Like, subscribe and share. Cheers.